Geek out! LaserDicks, you sexy motherfuckers.
Yeah.
Now that was kind of loud, but I think it'll work.
The waves look...
it's peaking right there. So the audience at home probably heard it and was like, ugh, that sounds terrible. I'm dicking around with a new soundboard for those intros. Normally I just kind of drop them in, and that's all she wrote. But this time we're playing around. So welcome to another episode of LaserDicks. I'm Chris.
And I'm Ken.
And we are here with a couple select movies. We both picked out, I think we both ended up with two from our respective collections.
Exactly. Right? I got like a bonus one, but I'm not really going to get into it time.
Yeah. So basically what we're discussing today is special features.
No.
And my picks are actually quite well themed. So my first one is the original, what is it, 1984, I think it is?
I think it is.
Ghostbusters. Fitting because the new Ghostbusters still in theaters.
Mm-hmm.
And I have the Criterion Collection, which has the movie spanning 4 sides, so 2 full discs here.
And it's the special oil-laced edition.
Yeah. If you remember from, what was it, our first episode,
mm-hmm.
I talk about my original 10. This is one of the ones that was the original 10 and got soaked in oil. It's still sticky, even though I've tried my best to clean it. It still kind of smells like oil.
A little bit, yeah. I can smell it from over here.
Yeah. It's rough. That's why I normally keep it in plastic. But for this, I wanted to be able to open it up, show off the bifold. The interior has a couple behind-the-scenes shots of Slimer, the Dream Ghost, or the Blowjob Ghost, if you're Sam. Actually, he doesn't call it the Blowjob Ghost, but that's what its original purpose was. You got Stay Puft walking around in a down Central Park West. Mm-hmm. That's the road. That's what it's called. And it's cool because you can see, because there's Stay Puft, and then there's like people dressed in normal clothes. It's the crew. You can see that the Stay Puft effect was basically just like a old school Godzilla effect. You know, it's a dude in a rubber suit, walking around, terrorizing miniatures.
Yeah, you don't see that a lot anymore.
Yeah, no, it makes me really sad. Apparently, they still do it, or at least they still did it up through the early 2000s in Japan, because I saw one of the more recent Japanese Godzilla movies, and they were still doing man in a mask, or man in a suit, and I was like, that's so awesome.
Well, you know what? They are bringing it back, because I just remembered, you know him from Evangelion, but the guy, Hideki Anno, is actually going to direct another Godzilla movie.
Ooh.
And I don't remember if he's doing this one in the whole kind of like, miniaturization, but he did do an entire museum dedicated to miniaturization.
Nice.
Like Ultraman, his favorite, and then Godzilla.
I assume that's in Japan?
Yes.
Oh, man. Okay, so now I have a reason to go to Japan.
Yeah. I mean, there was already several, so... I mean, we need
LaserDiscs.
to go. Yeah, exactly. We need to go and get these by the bargain bin.
But yeah, so this is something that I actually recently kind of really discovered, the special features on the Ghostbusters discs here, because what they did was they didn't do like what they do on contemporary DVDs and whatnot, where they have like movie on this disc, special features on this disc, or this side, or something like that. And everyone knows LaserDiscs didn't have menus, so you're not going through the menu seeing it. What they did was so they'll have like a little bit over 5 chapters per disc of the movie, and then they'll have a handful of chapters afterwards with special features. Oh. Now on the back here it shows it, but this is one of the movies that I've had forever, so I've never actually, until recently when I was like actually just kind of like dicking around, and I saw supplement at it's even more apparent on my new player, the auto flipper, because of these tracks at the end, it can't auto flip, because it's like, well, the movie's not done. It's just not letting me. What it does is it gets to the end of the final chapter of whatever the like on side 1, it's chapter 7, checking out Dana's home. That's what the chapter's called. When it gets to the end of that scene, it just stops the movie and like the screen goes blank, and you just know, oh hey, it's time to flip. Because the counter stops. Whatever. You just know to flip it. I'm sitting here with my auto flipper, watching it, and it just stops. It just sits there, and I'm like, you're supposed to flip sides. And then I realize, oh, it's because there's still more chapters at the end of the disc. So like then you do like frame advance that you can do on CAV discs, which this is, and it goes to a thing that's like, hey, welcome to the supplementary stuff. On this side, you have special effects comparison of the library ghost, deleted footage, a stairway scene between when they run away from the library and they're walking through the park. And then there's a scene called the stairway scene, and then when they get kicked out of the college, and it's kind of a throwaway scene, but basically like Venkman, the biggest piece of information in that scene is that Venkman declares that he's the reason why Stans and Egon know each other. That's basically all that happens in that scene. But I
believe that.
Mm-hmm. And it's cute to get that little bit, but but. It's about it's not useful to drive the story home, so I can understand like, oh, we need to trim 2 seconds, let's cut that out. But some very cool stuff on the special effects comparison. It's pretty cool. They give you a side by side or a top and bottom, not exactly left and right, but a side by side comparison of what they shot versus what the final product in the movie is of the librarian ghost going rah.
Now, is that actually like filmed? Like, are you actually watching it, or are you just doing a frame by frame, like just stills?
So those two, the deleted scene and the library ghost, those are video, but you have to do the frame advancement to get to a certain point, and then you can hit play. Like it's programmed to not let you just like play through the stuff. Okay. You have to physically hit play to do it, and then it stops again when it gets to the next chapter.
Wow! That's
and then and then they have storyboards for the library scene and the more or less the entire original screenplay for everything that happened on that side of the disc.
Wow!
Yeah, and then side 2, we got some other stuff. We got a special effects comparison for the ballroom scene. Where they're catching Slimer, specifically when they're doing the trap, not the whole scene.
Right.
And then storyboards and screenplay from that as well. Then there's on side 3, there's a little scene between Janine and Egon before they go off to attack, before they go off to confront Gozer after they've been arrested and released. So like right when that scene is where they have the camera panning down, where like all the military guys are getting into their cars and stuff like that, it would have been right there and really like kind of messed up the momentum. So I totally understand them pulling that out.
Well, does it flesh out like the love interest between the two of them? Just because like I always felt that was a little shoehorned in.
It kind of does. It's just another added scene to that. Like I think ultimately they that this particular scene more so just like I said because of momentum it was pulled out. But I think by the end of the movie they were like, this is that it doesn't make sense that they would be in love with each other. Which hence why it's not explored at all in the second one.
Okay.
But it is kind of like that whole like Janine is basically trying to be like, hey, I'm worried that you're gonna die. Here, have this memento to keep you luck. And he's like, you shouldn't give that to me. And she's like, oh, it's fine. I got 1 million of them. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
So it's kind of a weird bit. It's not nearly as bad as the one deleted scene that I know of that's not on here is the Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd playing secondary characters, like not their Ghostbuster selves, but they're different characters, and they're just two bums walking through Central Park. That it's right after Rick Moranis, Lewis, runs out of his apartment building and runs into Central Park, running away from the terror dog.
Right.
It cuts to two hobos played by Dan Aykroyd and Bill Murray,
right,
just shooting the shit, like talking about. I forget what it is. It's been a while since I've seen the scene. I think it's on the DVD or Blu-ray. But they're just talking for like a minute or two, and then Lewis Tully runs past them, and then it goes back into like
Lewis'
Lewis
perspective.
Yeah,
or something like that.
and it's just like what. Like, I get it. You guys are like character actors. You know, you like to play different characters, but like not this movie. This isn't Caddyshack, you know, or something like that. Like that works in certain movies. This isn't one of them. Then the fourth side, the final side, is the like grand poobah of all special features, because there's only like 10 minutes left of the movie.
Yeah, there's just 3 chapters.
It's basically the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man to the end is on the fourth side. So that's like not even 10 minutes. So they had a lot of space to put other special features. So you get 2 theatrical trailers, the original tease that was put out before the movie was even completed, and then the full trailer, and then you get excerpts, not the whole thing, but excerpts from the making of documentary, which is a pretty cool documentary, or at least from what I saw of this. You get little sound bites from a good number of people talking about how fun it was to make the movie. And then you get like a treasure trove of still images. Basically, somebody did like a visual diary of like a lot of the pre-production of a lot of the ghosts, Stay Puft, the Terror Dogs, Slimer, and just showing the evolution from like sketches to completed models and costumes and stuff like that. It shows you alternate designs for Slimer back when he was just called what's the line, ugly little puss bucket or whatever it is, because that's what his like name was originally in the script or something like that. And then like the crew calls him Onion Head because the costume smelled like onions, and it wasn't until like the cartoon that they called him Slimer. Yeah. And it wasn't until Ghostbusters 2 that they called them proton packs. They were just
strap your packs on. Or
the packs, sure, but they don't say proton packs until the dude in Ghostbusters 2 is like, "Hey man, you got any of those spare proton packs? My kid brother really wants one." But yeah, that fun little trivia for you there. I think in they retconned it to like they called them proton packs in the cartoon, which takes place sort of between Ghostbusters and Ghostbusters 2, but they don't actually call them proton packs in the first one. But yeah, then you see like the different designs for the Terror Dogs. You see like 20 different designs for Stay Puft, and I took videos of all of these with my cell phones, and I showed them to Josh, friend of the show, co-host on Geek Out Proper. Josh, who Ghostbusters' favorite movie of all time. So I was like, well, this guy's got to see it if he hasn't seen these. And then what else do we got on there? They show you the 3 different heads for Stay Puft, which is cool because they
had to have angry face.
His facial expression is static for each head. So he has at least 3 or 4 different expressions, so they had to make a different head for each one. The only thing that moves is his eyes. And then they had one that was specifically designed to melt, and they talk about how it took something like 2 hours for them to film the melting face because they wanted it to melt a specific way, so it was a slow melt. And what they did was they just took a picture like every 20 seconds or something like that. So they could, basically like stop motion animation, so that they would be able to show, present it in the movie the right way. And then as like almost like an Easter egg at the end, they just have the raw footage of the actress who plays the ghost librarian doing the as she, in the movie, ultimately she transforms into like a demon looking ghost, but it's just her facing the camera, and she's actually yelling quiet, just quiet.
There's too many layers of audio on there.
And there's someone going and stuff, to just mess with it. But yeah, it's like her just doing it over and over and over again for like 2 minutes is the last bit that you see on the Laserdisc.
That's pretty funny.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and lateral over to you for your first pick, and then we'll go back to my second pick. Sweet. Just to keep it fresh. People have been hearing my voice too much.
Let's keep it fresh. All right, well, in that case, then I'm going to do the lesser of the 2 that I got here. I've got right here, I picked this up, actually, at Record and Tape Exchange, Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
And it's not as exciting as the Criterion Collection. I actually don't have a lot of Criterion Collection discs. Yeah. I really should pick up a few more because that's really cool just to see.
Yeah. Criterion did well with LaserDiscs. Recently, a lot of people have been complaining with how they deal with DVDs and Blu-rays, but their LaserDiscs, more often than not, were quite on point.
Okay. Well, with this one, it's not a Criterion, but what was interesting about it is that after you watch the entire movie, they give you, I think it's 5 different language trailers for Pulp Fiction, which is interesting just to sit there and to compare them just because they're marginally the same. Mm-hmm. They're all in English. The only one that was dubbed over was in German, and German dubs are weird. They're not there's no inflection. There's just straight read. But what was interesting was that at the core of it, all the trailers had about 60% of the same cuts. 60%. Mm-hmm. Same cuts, same music. But then, to give you an example, there's a bit where, the trailer's going along, and then all of a sudden you get, the record scratch. And then, in the American one, it's the scene in the diner where John Travolta and Uma Thurman are talking, and she's like, don't you just hate those awkward silences? And, they have that little back and forth. But, the different languages would substitute out that scene for other ones, and it's just weird to, it was interesting to see, the different choices that they had, because they probably all had the same footage for a trailer selection, at least. Since a lot of the times you make the trailer before the movie's finished. So I'm wondering if maybe they, the movie premiered all around the same time, in all these different languages. So that was pretty interesting, just to give a comparison. And most of them just had subtitles. It was all in English, really. Most of them just had subtitles for all the different languages, and the German one being the only dubbed one. So that was kind of cool. I mean, that's kind of the standard, really, for the special features on LaserDisc.
Yeah. Almost half the movies I have at least have the theatrical trailer, at the beginning or the end of the movie.
And I think that's mainly because, when VHS was out, you kind of paid for the amount of film that you had on there. So you'd want to cut it off when the movie's done. But for LaserDisc, because you had the side system, you kind of had a little bit of extra room to play with. So, okay, why not throw... This is the first time we're kind of doing an analog digital kind of approach to things. So why not throw, the trailer on? Some people haven't seen the trailer in a while.
Yeah.
Why not? So that's what they had on there. And I know for for the other one that's... it's not the bigger special edition... or special features disc that I got, but my Evangelion movies, the end of Evangelion, the Death and Rebirth set that I have, they both have some trailers on it, specifically the TV ones. And it was kind of cool to see those because a lot of the times Evangelion advertisements, they're kind of a unique kind of flavor. Because what they do is that they just throw a bunch of quotes at you, real fast paced. They don't expect you to actually read this, but it's just their art to have text and just in your face. And they've kind of experimented with that on the LaserDisc covers as well, which was kind of interesting. They just have quotes in different fonts and different styles just in the background, and that's their background. So I thought that was kind of interesting, but it's not behind the scenes or anything like that. I wish it was. I wish I could see maybe a lot of the behind-the-scenes stuff, because I've seen that on the DVDs for Evangelion. They have what they did, instead of having I guess you call them animatics, but they have the sketches, but when they're in the dubbing process, they would put a colored line for each character on the actual cells themselves, just so they could time it correctly. But this is before they colored it. It was just a sketch form.
There, a lot of times the video that the composer for the music gets will have little cues like that, to let them know this is where a swell is supposed to happen. This is where a punctuation is supposed to happen.
Okay.
In fact, once you're done, that'll lead quite well into my second movie, but
okay,
not to cut you off.
Well, no, I think that's pretty much it. I mean, so you're talking about having that colored line. So I thought that was kind of unique to animation, but that's interesting.
Yeah. So my second one is E.T. the Extraterrestrial, which again themed because 80s Spielberg is alive and well in the Netflix TV series Stranger Things.
I still need to get into that.
It's pretty good. Pretty good. As someone who lived through half the 80s and enjoys things of an 80s nature, it was really nice. And lots of 80s like pop culture things, but without it being like, oh, look, here's a reference to the 80s. Here's a reference to the 80s. Shove it down your throat. Like,
oh, I love my skip bow. It's the best thing ever.
Yeah. But like, it's just there, it's just in the it takes place in the 80s, so it just makes sense that things are there, and they don't make a big deal out of it, which is wonderful. But this isn't a Stranger Things podcast. This is a LaserDisc podcast, and I'm here to talk about E.T. the Extraterrestrial. I have the Mondo Collector's Edition. I forget exactly what it's called, but I'm going to call it like the ridiculous Collector's Edition. It's CAV on like 5 sides.
Oh God,
long.
I saw that over there.
And it actually has content up to 7 sides because there's so many special features. And the special features are all CLV, so like there's a lot.
All right.
I have it comes in a big box set because there's so many discs. It has to have a big box set. And what's nice is that it comes with a little booklet that tells you everything that's inside. So I'm able to just sit here with the booklet to talk about it, as opposed to having the giant box that's just a giant box and would get in the way. I would like to thank real quick Zach. He gave me this for my birthday, I believe last year. And I'm just now taking it out of the plastic. Because he gave it to me. He gifted it to me because I really wanted it, because it has a specific deleted scene that I've never seen anywhere else.
Oh, what's that?
I'll get to that once I'm done. I'm done with the backstory. But he gave it to me still in factory plastic, and I was like, now the collector in me doesn't want to open it up. So finally, for purposes of this episode, I tore it out of the plastic, watched the special features, just so I could get a better understanding of what's there. So thank you, Zach. I finally watched your present, and it was beautiful. It was awesome. Makes me kind of want to watch E.T. again, because I haven't seen E.T. in probably at least 10, 15 years.
Oh yeah, me neither. Now to appreciate it as an adult.
Yeah, right. But deleted scenes. It shows 2 or 3 of them, if I remember correctly. The big one being the one that has Harrison Ford in it.
That's right.
Not a lot of people know this. Harrison Ford is in E.T. He plays the principal of Elliot's school, who is only seen in one scene that got deleted off of the final cut. As far as I'm aware, the deleted scene hasn't appeared really anywhere else. I don't know why. But it's in this version because it's part of the documentary that is the making of E.T. the Extraterrestrial, which is on side 6 and 7 of the box set.
Right.
So you get to see that scene, which is the reason why I wanted it. So I'm like, oh, cool. Get to see it. Never show his face. It was
what?
It was a big point that Spielberg had, that he wanted to minimize showing adults' faces and stuff like that in the movie. So you literally never see Harrison Ford's face. It's his body, it's the back of his head, it's his voice, and all that, but you never actually see his face. But he's basically just reprimanding Elliot after he let all the frogs loose.
That seems interesting that you say that he wanted it to be kind of from the child's perspective, because I remember seeing Elliot's parents and
you
the
see
police officer.
You do see parents, his parents' face. You see plenty of people's faces. I'm just going off of the explanation that he gave as to why he didn't show Harrison Ford's face.
All right.
Because he's talking, intermittently with these scenes going off. Then they show a scene where he goes, where Elliot has to go to the school nurse, and it's funny because the editor of the movie plays one of the nurses, and she talks about how she's so glad that scene got cut out because she didn't want to be in the movie.
Aww.
But then they talk about how they made E.T.'s voice. It's a famous voice actress. I forget her name right now. I apologize. But she's doing the voice, and then they modulate it 10 times, kind of like the ghost librarian.
Right.
And then they have this whole big segment on the score, how they did the score, which is what I was talking about. They actually show John Williams in the studio recording the bike flying scene. And yeah, it has these little lines going across the screen to let him know that they want a big crescendo or a big like kind of like die down of it. And then they have like dots every time it's supposed to be like a punch, da, da, kind of thing. And then which was really cool because I've actually always wanted to see that. I heard one of my friends who is a composer was talking about that a little while ago, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. I would love to see a film from the musician's perspective.
Right. Yeah.
And then oddly enough, in that documentary, Steven Spielberg also mentions that his main regret from filming that movie is that he included guns in a threatening manner, especially used to threaten children, which is an interesting coincidence because he did go in and alter the movie right around the same time that George Lucas went in and did the special editions of Star Wars.
Right.
And that was a huge fiasco for Star Wars fans, or at least that's the general consensus.
Right.
And then same thing happened with E.T. He went in and re-edited all the scenes that have guns in them, and in several occasions, the police officers and government men who have guns are now holding digitally imposed walkie-talkies. And he mentions the plan to do that several years before that actually happens. I think this Laserdisc came out in like the early to mid 90s.
Right.
I say that because Elliot, the kid who played Elliot, and Drew Barrymore, who plays his sister in the movie, are both interviewed in it, and they're like at least 20 in their interviews. So that's got to be right around the time that he started doing it.
Right.
And then he also mentions with the deleted scenes, he's like, there's some things that his main philosophy,
right,
is that every scene needs to drive the story forward.
Right.
If there are scenes that you film and then you realize that they don't drive the story forward, or for whatever reason mess up the pacing, that's fine. Those will just go on the back of the Laserdisc, but they are out of the movie. And I giggled that he'd mentioned Laserdisc because I'm watching it on a Laserdisc. And then I laughed at the idea of someone watching this on a Blu-ray and being like, "Huh?
What's that? I don't understand."
Yeah.
And I will add here that I found out that E.T.'s voice was provided by Pat Welsh.
There you go.
Deborah Winger. Pat Welsh smoked 2 packs a day to get that voice.
Ah, yeah. So I guess Deborah Winger is the actress that I was talking about, and then Pat Welsh is the one who like modified it and.
Well, she was on set.
She was on set. Oh, okay. There you go. And then Spielberg also provided the voice several times while on set, like off camera and stuff like that. Yeah.
Here. One of those.
Well, he was. They have clips of him doing it, and he's actually like getting into it, and he's like, "Phone home."
Oh man.
Yeah.
Well, sweet. Well, why don't I get on into mine here? I got my last pick here. Let me pull that out. Where did it go? Here we go. So I got my pick here. This is a favorite movie of mine. I think I've talked about it before. It's Singing in the Rain.
Mm-hmm.
Singing in the Rain is probably one of the earliest childhood like movies that I grew up watching. Like it's just my mom raised me on musicals, and this was definitely one of them. And it kind of impacted me on like how like I guess my comedic sense. Like I love that song "Make 'Em Laugh." Like, have you ever seen this movie?
I have actually never seen Singing in the Rain.
Well, guess what? I'm going to leave this here.
Oh.
Well, I mean, like, what's your opinion on musicals?
I enjoy musical. That was not that was like a ooh.
No, all right.
Finally, the opportunity to see Singing in the Rain.
Well, yeah, I mean, and it's a great because the idea behind Singing in the Rain, this kind of rolls into the special features, was that MGM, when they came out with this movie, wanted to showcase the history of MGM and the history of musical and cinemas. So every single song choice in this movie came from another movie.
So there's no original music in the music.
There might be singing. I don't know if Singing in the Rain was. I have to rewatch the documentary, which is on here, and this is what I'm going to talk about. But I know at least a majority of the other songs are just key, and that's are just like selected from other movies, and that's why some of the like transitions are a little jarring because there's a dream sequence. There's a sequence where it's basically this is a movie that takes place in the birth of voiced and musical movies. Mm-hmm. In fact, they talk about The Wedding Singer, and the main character is like, it's a gimmick. It's not going to catch on, but then it catches on. It catches like wildfire, and they suddenly have to convert their movie into a talkie.
It was a very good film for Adam Sandler's career.
Oh wait, who? What's the movie's title? It's not The Wedding Singer. Man, I feel like an idiot. I feel like an idiot now. Like The Jazz Singer.
The Jazz Singer. I do know of that movie.
Yeah, The Jazz Singer. I'm sorry, and they specifically reference it, so it's kind of like a weird historical fictional piece. But so what the special feature of this, which kind of fits along with the movie. It's a history of the actual history of musical theater or musical movies on TV and in the theaters, which is crazy. So it starts out with The Jazz Singer, and as racist as it is, like this, like we watched a clip earlier when I was flipping through it. Like they use blackface.
It is full on blackface.
It is full on blackface, and it's kind of sucks that this is history. But it's really racist history. That's why I'm kind of glad that like Warner Brothers, when they released their old Looney Tunes shorts, they specifically said, "Hey, it was a different time. They're unedited here for posterity, but recognize that this is not okay."
Yeah, unlike Disney, who buries their racist movies.
Yeah, no, I remember
the Songs of the South.
Song of the South. I had that on record. I had that on record.
Awkward.
Yeah.
Back to Singing in the Rain.
Back to Singing in the Rain. So, like I was saying, like it's a history. It's like a documentary called "Gotta Sing, Gotta Dance" or "Gotta Dance, Gotta Sing," and it's just a cool like overview of how the history of musicals. So you start out in the beginning with The Jazz Singer, but then you get into they have the chapter selection here. They got Busby, Berkeley Lee, and Fred Astaire and Rogers. Those were the dancing movies, and those were fantastic. I remember seeing a bunch of those. And then you get into the child stars with Shirley Temple, and then it's crazy because they also put in actual history. So you've got America, Hollywood Goes to War. Suddenly you have a bunch of war movies, all related to propaganda and trying to believe in your country and buy war bonds, that whole Captain America bit.
Punching Hitler in the face.
Oh, you have to. In front of every magazine cover, you have to punch Hitler in the face. And there's a few others here. I really wish I would have sat down and watched this. I did kind of a skip through, but it's a really crazy documentary just about this history. And they cover Elvis, they cover Frank Sinatra, TV, Broadway, getting a lot of Broadway shows on the big screen. They talked about Hair. Heck, they talked about Rocky Horror Picture Show, which is interesting because they pitched it as that smash hit. I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure it didn't do.
In retrospect, it's become a hit.
It's become a hit, but it's a cult classic. It didn't do too well, and then it had a resurgence, which is cool. But it's it didn't do too well originally. So they did that, and they kind of summed up the decades. But I think that was a really good idea to include that with such a historical kind of fiction musical movie. So watch this for sure. I mean, this is one of my favorite pieces. I really love what was his name? Gene Kelly. Gene Kelly is a fantastic actor. He can dance. He's got the whole 9 yards. And then one of my favorite actors, Donald O'Connor. Donald O'Connor was the physical comedian that they got. He was his best friend. I feel like the cliche in this movie is to have the crazy good-looking main lead actor and then the goofy best friend, which he owns it. He's got his number, make him laugh. That is a crazy physical role. You don't see Gene doing that. Gene dances, but this guy throws himself on couches. He does flips off of walls. Donald is a crazy good comedic guy. So I will definitely leave this here for you.
Okay, yeah. I've been interested to check it out. It's never been handed to me. to watch. So I've always had to be like, do I want to watch this or do I want to watch something else? Let me not put it up against Ghostbusters since it's all oily. Yeah. So that's our episode on special features. These are not even close to the only movies that had special features on LaserDisc. Yeah. There's plenty, but we felt like these were a good sampling of what you could get with LaserDiscs. I also like we on our Star Wars episode we talked about my Star Wars Definitive Collection where they have commentary for select tracks. My Clerks LaserDisc has commentary for the entire movie where Kevin Smith says "fuck DVDs."
Actually, I'll mention too the American Tail, the first Fievel movie. They actually had a lot of behind-the-scenes stills. So after the movie ended, much like your Ghostbusters, you could just frame by frame, and that was the first time I got to see like these animators and Don Bluth, because I'm pretty sure that was a Don Bluth movie, right? If I'm horribly mistaken, somebody correct me.
Yeah, tweet him.
Tweet at Raging Red Return. Hey, fuck you.
Actually, it was blah, blah.
Yeah, and by the way, but it shows all those guys, and I love watching old animated movies, special features, just because I love, the storyboarding process, being in the room and like, hey, I have to pitch you this scene because we have to decide on what scenes to have in the movie because we're going to invest money in animating in this movie, so we have to make this perfect, but we can't just cutting room floor it. That's going to waste money. So I love like seeing the directors like pitch their movies, doing all the voices.
That's pretty cool. You should borrow my Beauty and the Beast. Because
I own your Beauty and the Beast.
Oh, you have your own copy of the Work in Progress?
I love the Work in Progress.
Yeah, it's a good one. All right, well then in that case, I guess this is a wrap on this episode.
All right, tune in next week or next month.
Next month in like 3-ish weeks.
3-ish weeks.
Yeah.
That's a good time scale.
Yeah. Next month works. So yeah, this has been another exciting installment of LaserDicks. I'm Chris.
And I'm Ken. Da-da-da-da-da-da. LaserDicks.
This has been another Geek Out production. If you enjoyed what you heard, hey, we've got a new commentary every Monday. We've got a special episode every Friday. Of course, there's the usual catching up show every Wednesday. And you get book club episodes just about every Tuesday these days. Thanks for listening.